Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. While the sacrifice was being performed, many brahmarsis, great sages, ancestral demigods, and other demigods, their wives all very nicely decorated with ornaments, attended from different parts of the universe. Today, we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 3, entitled Talks Between Lord Shiva and Sati. Text 4. I'm very grateful to be back after over 5 months of separation from all of you. Thank you very much. In today's purport, Srila Prabhupada is so nicely describing the traditional spirit of how auspicious ceremonies are celebrated. Within the society of demigods, the heavenly women are so beautifully decorated. Now, this decoration of ornaments and cosmetics and fine clothing that Srila Prabhupada refers to is something very different than what we see in Bombay. Because the material egoistic sense is we decorate ourselves very nicely so that we become the center of people's attention. This is the basic principle of material bondage. It is the fundamental symptom of the living entity's envy toward God. Krishna is the supreme object of everyone's love. The name Krishna means he is all attractive. And by putting Krishna in the center of our consciousness, individually and collectively, we are united, we are purified, we are liberated from all sufferings, material sufferings. But when the ahankar, or the false ego, plagues us with this disease, we want to be the center. We want to be honored, we want to be recognized, we want people to be attracted to us. People could give up eating, give up sleeping, give up sex life. Very difficult. Give up defending. But this deep-seated anartha may still remain. The desire to be honored, to be put in the center. And we see it's so deeply conditioned. When a little baby is born and it cries, it wants attention, wants love. But also, besides crying for love, it's crying to be in the center, the focus of everyone's attention, oftentimes. So yes, the fashion world is a very, very powerful industry today. Billions of dollars are spent on cosmetics and fashions to make oneself look beautiful. Both men and women. And it's oftentimes the cause of so much suffering. Because when you look beautiful, you may attract somebody else's husband or somebody else's wife, other than your own. Maybe even better than your own, in your own conception. Then immorality. And what happens after immorality? If you have children, broken homes, they suffer like anything. So many insecurities, confusion. Yes. Lust burns like fire. Now, when the way we dress is for the purpose of invoking and fueling that fire, cripples the morality of society. But we see in the most perfect, pure state of transcendental love, the gopis, they are decorating themselves very nicely for Krishna. The best they can do. But there's a total difference. They see Krishna as the center, not themselves. They're only doing it for Krishna's pleasure, as an offering of love to Krishna, so that Krishna will be satisfied. And Srila Prabhupada explains here, even in the more cultured sense, if a woman does put her ornaments on herself, it's to give happiness to her husband. But if her husband says don't do it, if she does it anyway, then it means she's trying to put herself in the center. The demigods like it when their wives are like this. Decorating themselves for husbands, or for Krishna, ultimately, who is the supreme husband of every living being. In South India, we have seen pujaris with all ornaments and nice silk cloths. Now, sannyasis don't do like that. But grihastha pujaris, and they have all kinds of perfumes on their bodies. And for most of us, we think, is this person in Maya? He may be in Maya. It may be, very well, he may be in Maya. It's not me to judge. But Krishna says, Prabhupada tells in one beautiful purport, that Krishna is bhavagrahi. He doesn't accept what you do, he accepts the purpose in which you offer it. What is your motive? That is what Krishna accepts. He doesn't need anything from us. He wants our love. He accepts the intention in which everything is offered to him. So one such pujari explained to me that the reason why he's dressing like this and putting these fine perfumes on is because he's going on the altar and he wants to look nice for Krishna. Haribo. He's doing it for Krishna's satisfaction. If that's actually his motive, if that's actually the system where he has the blessings of his guru and his parampara to do like this, then it's beautiful. It's devotional service. So all of these things that are so popular in the world, they have their place. Bhakti is the process of reconnecting all these things in such a way that they elevate our consciousness rather than degrade our consciousness. And the basis of bhakti is to make Krishna's satisfaction our center point. And the only way to do that honestly is we have to take ourselves out of the center. Srila Prabhupada, he would be surrounded sometimes by thousands of people chanting his name, surrendering their lives to him. But he never accepted anything for himself. It was all for Krishna. His only purpose was to help us to love Krishna. It wasn't, if we loved him, because he was passing that love on to Krishna, and because he was representing Krishna, it was connecting us to Krishna. From his perspective, nothing was about him. Everything was about Krishna. Attracting people to Krishna. This amazing sacrifice that's about to take place. Although everyone is so nicely decorated and there's music playing and there's mantras being chanted, we are going to read in the next pages that it culminates in disaster. But how disaster culminates in something very auspicious. Hare Krishna. The background we'd like to discuss briefly. In the previous chapter, there is a yajna that's about to be performed. And the principal demigods, sages, rishis, all assembled. They were all in their seats when Daksha appeared. Daksha is not an ordinary person. We may read Bhagavatam and read about all these faults in Daksha, but if you were face to face with him, you would probably bow down. The sages and the rishis and the demigods are standing up as soon as he comes in to offer their honor to him. He had such powers. His beauty was bright like the sun, literally. And he was very, very learned. And he had tremendous amount of potency. Everyone stood up except Brahma and Shiva. Brahma is his father, so there wasn't any etiquette for him to stand up. Shiva is more powerful because he's one of the controllers of the three modes of material nature. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. But he didn't stand up because he was so absorbed in meditating on Krishna. He just didn't even notice such an insignificant incident as Daksha walking. But because Shiva was married to Daksha's daughter, Daksha could not tolerate this offense. It was actually something brewing in his heart for a long time. And it just took this incident to ignite that fire, to explode like a bomb. Brahma said, "Please, Daksha, sit down." He said, "What I speak, first of all, you should all know. It's according to Shastra. It's not being spoken with any ill motive or any envy whatsoever." That was his preface. And he actually believed it. Human psychology is like this. The ego is so powerful that you can act in such a way that any sane person sees exactly where you're at, but you can't see it yourself. So, I am not speaking out of envy or any ill will toward anyone. I'm just speaking the facts. And then he went on with a barrage of blasphemy toward Lord Shiva. He is the embodiment of inauspiciousness. What do you people, how can you tolerate it? You're all great demigods and rishis, and he's one of you. He's spoiling the reputation of our whole society. Look at him. No dignity whatsoever. I am his father-in-law. And he doesn't offer his respect to me? I didn't want to marry my daughter to him. He has no good manners. He hangs in places like crematoriums and smears the ashes of dead corpses all over his face and his body. He wears garlands of human skulls. He doesn't even wear proper clothing. Doesn't keep a house. And who does he associate with? These ignorant ghosts and demons. He's abominable. He has no culture and no respect. My daughter, whose eyes are like that of a deer cub, she had to marry this Shiva whose eyes are like an ugly monkey? I should never have done it. But Lord Brahma encouraged me that I had to do it. Here is Daksha. He's not only blaspheming Shiva, but he lost his sanity. He was even minimizing Lord Brahma, his own father. The greatest of the demigods, both of them are being blasphemed. Then he cursed. So many curses toward Lord Shiva. Anyone who follows him will become an atheist. Anyone who follows him will be in the mode of ignorance. Hare Krishna. So many things like that. Lord Shiva sat there silently. He couldn't care less. He was obviously feeling some pity for Daksha. But he didn't care. Because Lord Shiva is a totally transcendental person. He wasn't concerned with his own honor or dishonor. He is Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. He's the greatest Vaishnav. In the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is explained there, when Lord Shiva drinks the ocean of poison by condensing it. This is why he is Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. Because of his compassion. The service that most pleases the Lord within this creation is showing compassion to other living beings. And because he showed the greatest extent of compassion, selflessly taking all the poison himself, so no one else would have to suffer from it, he is considered greatest Vaishnava. Advaitacharya in Lord Chaitanya's Leela, he is a combined incarnation of Mahavishnu and Sadashiva. This was his compassion. It was his compassion that was one of the primary reasons that Lord Chaitanya came to this world. Sri Advaita Prabhu was in transcendental bliss, chanting the holy names of Krishna, meditating on Krishna. But seeing the conditioned souls in Shantipur and Navadvip and seeing into the future of the conditioned souls of this Kali Yuga, his heart was breaking. And please understand, at the time, Navadvip was not a poor place of ghettos and slums, where you need missionaries going and giving people food and giving people clothes and giving people shelter and medical aid. It wasn't that type of suffering. Navadvip was a place, the highest place of learning. There was great wealth there. There was great festivals. He saw them, all these high-ranked Brahmins who were living on the top of the society. He was seeing in their illusion of being happiness, in their pride, they had forgotten Krishna. Real suffering is the soul's forgetfulness of Krishna. And great souls see that. When Srila Prabhupada was walking down Fifth Avenue in Manhattan of New York City, seeing people drive by with their limousines and living in multi-million-dollar houses and dressed with the finest fashions, his heart was weeping in compassion for them, seeing their suffering condition, because they were bereft of the only real truth and the only real happiness, Krishna consciousness. Yes, Advaitacharya Prabhu, for years, he performed sacrifice of loudly crying out the holy name, offering Ganges water and tulsi leaves to Lord Vishnu, crying to Krishna, crying out to Krishna, please descend and deliver these fallen souls. That is the quality of Lord Shiva. And to the degree you are thinking in terms of that, showing compassion to others, it's a joy to suffer for their welfare. Lord Brahma is sitting there too. His position in Lord Chaitanya Leela was Haridas Thakur. He was beaten in 22 marketplaces with the intent to cause him to suffer and die. But the whole while, he was chanting the holy names and praying to the Lord in his name. Please forgive them, deliver them, give them mercy, give them spiritual happiness. You see, it's not about me and you. It's about Krishna and how we can serve Krishna, how we can serve those who are close to Krishna. That is Krishna consciousness. To take ourselves out of the center and put Krishna and others in the center for Krishna's pleasure. So Shiva sat there. But Nandeshwar, he was really disturbed. his master, Lord Shiva, is being blasphemed and cursed. He lost control of his mind and began to blaspheme Daksha like anything. That anyone who takes your side, Daksha, will just be a gross materialist, karmakandi. Hare Krishna. And began to curse. When Lord Shiva saw this cursing and counter-cursing and the flurry of anger, he didn't say a word. He got up and walked out. Hare Krishna. Now, years have gone by, and there was obviously no communication between Lord Shiva and his father-in-law. But Daksha, this envy in his heart was still burning, just waiting for the excuse to cause it to explode again. And Srila Prabhupada writes, text 2 of this chapter, what was the problem with Daksha? He was puffed up. And why was he puffed up? Because Lord Brahma appointed him the chief of all the Prajapatis. Very powerful position. If you see the list of various persons who are Prajapatis, great souls, Kashyapa Muni is a Prajapati. Daksha was appointed by Lord Brahma to be the chief. Prabhupada says, when a man becomes too proud of his material possessions, he can perform any disastrous act. And therefore Daksha acted out of false prestige. This is described in this chapter. When one is inflated by false prestige, all one's good qualities are in the process of destruction. In the Christian Bible it is said, pride cometh before the fall. When you're proud, you put yourself in the center. When you're proud, inevitably, you become envious. Because you're attached to your position. You're attached to what you have. You're attached to the prestige, to the enjoyments that you're getting from that situation. And if somebody else is getting more, or somebody else has more, envy. Envy is a byproduct of pride. And ultimately, pride is a byproduct of envy. It's a vicious cycle. Because Daksha was in such a high prestigious position. You see, if he was not such an important person, when he walked in that room, if nobody stood up, he wouldn't have cared that Shiva didn't stand up. Yes? But because everybody else stood up, he was outraged that Shiva did not stand up. Prestige, pratishta, is a subtle form of lust. Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita the nature of lust. It burns like fire. And the more fuel you put in that fire, the hotter and more consuming the blaze becomes. When you satisfy gross lust, it appears to go down momentarily. But it goes deeper in your heart, conditions you to make it the attachment stronger and stronger and stronger. And ultimately it blazes again, more ferociously than ever. And that is the same nature of pratishta. Now in this case, it's very, very interesting. Brahma gave him the position. No, he's the guru of our sampradaya. He's the original person that Krishna enlightened in the Vedas within our universe. Very exalted person. But still, even if a great soul gives you a position, if you become proud of it, it's inevitable. You're going to be envious of others. There's going to be a unhealthy material form of competition. You're going to make offenses. You're going to blaspheme. You're going to fall. It's inevitable. Yes. Even if Srila Prabhupada gives you a position, if you become attached to the prestige of that position, and you become envious of others due to that, you're going to fall. Amazing thing. It's not that he just did a political campaign to become the chief of the Prajapatis. He was appointed by Lord Brahma. But he was expected to act properly. But he did not. Very, very dangerous. So yes, Srila Prabhupada is explaining here, due to this pride, due to this false prestige, Daksha could not tolerate that Shiva had a higher position of respectability and he was more spiritually enlightened than him. It was unimaginable. He was so great. Why are people respecting Shiva more? And I have so much power. But Shiva's supposed to be in a more higher position than me? Cannot be. Destroy it. Envy. Now, in the future pages we see Lord Shiva, he's very calm. Sati, Lord Shiva's wife, she's seeing all her sisters and all her friends and all the wives of the demigods. They are ornamented and dressed so beautifully with flowers and gold and silver and jewels and silks. And they're all going to Daksha's house to be a part of this wonderful, wonderful festival and ceremony. And she's attracted. Nature. She hasn't seen her sisters in so long. She hasn't seen her mother in so long. Hasn't seen her father in so long. Even though he's an envious person, still, you love your father. You love your sisters. So she approaches Lord Shiva, asking, can we go? It's a very nice event. I really want to go. I guess for Sati, who's living up in Mount Kailash under a tree with Lord Shiva, she doesn't have many opportunities to dress up and socialize. But she really wanted to do that. Lord Shiva was cursed by Daksha that he would not be allowed to take the shares of the sacrifice with the other demigods. Now, this is very interesting. For Daksha, this is such an honor to sit with all the other big leaders of the universe like Lord Brahma, Indra, and take the offerings of the sacrifices. It's the ultimate honor for people on that level. He cursed that Shiva wouldn't be given any portions of that. Now, Daksha's thinking that would cause so much pain to Shiva. But just the opposite. Lord Shiva, our acharyas explain, he was very happy about that curse. Because most of the demigods are really materialistic people. And he doesn't want to sit around and eat these sacrifice remnants with materialistic people for materialistic purposes. But because he's a demigod, he's obliged to do it. It's his duty. He has to, if he's invited. But now, he never has to do it again. Haribo! Sometimes devotees, out of some social obligation, they have to go to some events, yes, which materialistic events. Now, out of social obligation, if you have to go, that's not bad. But if you enjoy it, that's bad. Lord Shiva would go, but he was just, waiting. It was a formality. Okay, we'll sit down. I'm one of the demigods. He eats his remnants and he goes as soon as possible. Yes? Like we have seen devotees, very nice devotees, grihastas, and there's some marriage. India, marriages are very significant subject matters. Some relatives' marriage. And your business partner's marriage. And if you don't show your face, it's like an offense. So we have seen devotees. They just go with their wives, they show their face, say congratulations, and get out. Haribo. We have seen devotees like that. Now, Lord Shiva, I don't have to do that formality anymore. I'm free. Haribo. So he and Sati, they didn't go to any more of these yagyas. But she really, really wanted to go to this one. Because this was, Daksha was performing it in her home. And everyone was going to be there. A reunion. And Lord Shiva tells her that your father is not favorable toward me. I cannot go. He didn't invite me. She said, but it's my father's house. I don't need an invitation. He said, if you go, he's going to criticize me, and that will be more painful than death to you. How heartless. Now, it's not that Daksha's a demon. Daksha's like a demigod. Daksha's a scholar of Vedas. All the devatas and all the great rishis like Bhrigu Muni, they would not be standing up to honor Daksha if he was demoniac. He's actually a very powerful, great soul in many ways. But a problem. Because of that false pride of his position, because he was putting himself in the center, envy corrupted his heart. That envy, that lust for prestige, and the anger that comes from it when it is unsatisfied, thwarted, how it can bewilder a person's intelligence. Dhyayato vishayan pungsang sangasteshu bhajayate sangat sanjayate kama krodha bhajayate krodhat bhavati samohat samoha smriti vibrama. We contemplate the objects of the senses. Attachment. From attachment, lust. When lust is not satisfied, anger. In this regard, it's not physical lust, it's subtle lust. The lust of prestige. When there's anger, one's memory is bewildered. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. When intelligence is lost, we fall down. We either fall down to immoral physical activities or we blaspheme on the subtle level. That's what's happening. Daksha knows the philosophy. He knows what Vaishnava aparad is. He knows all this stuff better than us, perhaps. But because he was bewildered, he didn't see Shiva as a Vaishnava anymore. Now, when you become envious of someone and you don't see them as a Vaishnava, it doesn't mean that Krishna doesn't see them as a Vaishnava. And if you blaspheme him, Krishna is going to put his wrath on you. It is said in this chapter that Sati was the pet daughter of Daksha. She was his favorite. He gave her the most intimate affection. And she was accustomed to that. He loved her from the perspective of fatherly love. But his envy for Shiva was so bad that he lost his intelligence to such a degree that he totally broke his own daughter's heart. He inflicted upon her such deep pain that she was willing to give up her life. And he didn't even notice what he was doing because he was just so caught up in lust, envy, and anger. Prabhupada quotes, Trividam narakashitam dwaram nashatam atmana kamakuras tatalobas tasmat etatriyam tyajait. Bhagavad Gita tells, there are 3 gates that lead to hell. Lust, anger, and greed. And every sane man should give them up because they lead to the degradation of the soul. This is Lord Krishna's definition of sanity. One who clings to this lust, anger, and greed. Prestige, physical, sensual enjoyment, the desire to accumulate more and more and call oneself the proprietor. And when it's unfulfilled, krodha, anger. We must all be very careful. This story is in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam for our sake. Srila Shukadeva Goswami, of all the histories, of all the Puranas, not only the Puranas in this world, but the Puranas of all the universes in creation, he knew it all. He was a disciple of Vyasadeva. He took the essence of what we need to hear to become Krishna conscious. This story is so powerful and it's so important because we all have that daksha element within our hearts. And if we're not willing to recognize it, see it, and deal with it. In our own little way, we will end up like Daksha, becoming envious and offending great souls. Of course, all's well that ends well. In the future verses we find that Daksha offends Sati so bad she through mystic yoga her body goes on fire. She was very angry then. Look what this nonsense Daksha has done to my wife. And he creates Virabhadra, a very, very powerful, monstrous creation. And along with Lord Shiva's associates, they invade that sacrifice that's going on. And they're knocking out people's teeth and poking out their eyes. Somebody who looked in that cursing ceremony, who looked at somebody angry, they got their eyes poked out. Somebody who smiled got their teeth kicked out. And Virabhadra took Daksha, and they were going to do a yajna, and a goat was there. Yes? One of those choppers. And they put Daksha's head in that sacrificial chopper. Daksha was dead, without a head. And ultimately everything cooled down, and Lord Brahma comes and tells Lord Shiva, Daksha, he was a rascal, he was envious and all that other stuff, but still he's my son, and he's the chief Prajapati, and he's your brother. So please give him another chance. This is Brahma. This is another form of a Vaishnava. Even if a person does so many bad things, still a Vaishnava is willing to give you another chance. And Lord Shiva, it's explained in this chapter that Lord Shiva actually he didn't really have any enmity toward Daksha at all. He only allowed his head to be chopped off to teach him a good lesson. Shiva had no ill feelings toward him even. He was just doing it for his own benefit. He knew he was too proud, too puffed up. He was too handsome and too strong and too famous and too everything else. Therefore, he was so puffed up. He had such a high position, puffed up. What's the cure? He couldn't preach to him. Daksha thought he knew everything. Serious surgery. Chopped his head off. Shiva said, all right, I'll be happy to bring him back to life. But his head was already thrown in the fire and it's gone. So I'll have to give him a new head. Goat head. Very perfect. Lord, such a perfect arrangement. Who would be proud to have a goat's head? Nobody's going to stand up to offer obeisances to you if you have a goat's head. Even little children. When Daksha would walk, everyone would go, oh, the chief of the Prajapatis. Oh, His Holiness Daksha. But now he'll walk by and little kids are going, Daksha has a goat head. Daksha has... Just, having dinner with somebody with a goat head, nobody wants to see you. So it was perfect. He had the chance to perform all his duties, but there was no more reason to be proud. And after he came alive, Daksha actually understood. Because that pride, that prestige, that attachment